Lord, we just ask you to continue to guide us, lead us, and direct us in all that we're doing here at these meetings. And we'll just pray for our county, our people, our citizens, and we just give you all glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. We now call the regular session of the Swain County Commissioners meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And in doing so, we invite Gunner up.
Face the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Moving down to item number 2, do we have any adjustments of the agenda this evening? You have none. Gentlemen, do you have anything you want to add to the agenda or take away from the agenda? Okay, then we'll continue to move down, and it'll be the tax collector's report.
Peggy is not here tonight, so I'm going to read her report. Total receivable for the month of September collected was $448,897.19. Year to date, $1,894,231.22. Total monthly collected is $568,184.70. Total collected year to date is $2,310,664.65. We've received approximately 7.90% of the scroll number for the year. And the vehicle tax for the month is $31,072.73. Vehicle tax year to date, $110,988.39. And the year to date is, let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. And then the monthly for the way I have collected a little bit in the tax office, $16.30, and a total of $50.56, and that's left over from other DMV taxes. The waste fee collected for the month is $67,375.94. Collected year to date is $275,322.80. Total discoveries for the month is $247,920.93. And the reason that's a discovery is because it is public utilities. So if I have my second page. Releases are $550. Oh, I'm sorry, total of $9,279.65. And refunds of $926.10.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have the report in front of you? What is your pleasure? Would you like to accept it as given? If so, I will entertain a motion in a second.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a second on the floor, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions, any other questions about this? If none, then all in favor of accepting this report as given, please raise your right hand. Carried unanimously. Okay, and then the finance report, are you doing that?
Right. Finance report for the month of September 2020. Total revenues year to date for the month were $2,014,639.94. Year-to-date total revenues is $5,411,941.96. We've received 77.9% of the budgeted appropriation for the 2020-21 fiscal year. Expenditures for the month were $1,761,046.98. Total expenditures year-to-date, $5,823,645.27. Paid out 76.11%. The general fund has a current year deficit That should be a deficit, not a surplus, of $253,593.96. Solid Waste Fund, $317,081.48. Total expenditure year to date, $319,690.05. Current year deficit of $2,608.57. Social Service Fund, total revenues year to date, $607,549.23. Expenditures, $795,724.72. Current year deficit of $188,175.49. Health Department, total revenue year to date, $338,123.62. Expenditures year to date, $370,563.86. Deficit of $2,524 even. A little bit of a different report looking tonight. We normally do not give a finance report in the month of September because of the auditing process, but I did want to give you a kind of a snapshot of what's going on. This is very similar to last year, so it's nothing kind of out of the ordinary as far as the revenues. And I did want to take this opportunity to tell you that sales tax currently has an increase of about 10% over last year through 1 month in this current fiscal year. Excise tax, which is a direct correlation of real estate transaction, is up $29,000 for the same period between July and September. And inspection fees is an increase of $10,000, which is about a 10% overall increase for generally this time of year. It's about a 10% increase. So there is a lot of movement both in the sales tax and in real estate transactions.
Okay, you've heard the report. Backing up just a moment, if you would, please.
Yeah.
The $253,592.96.
Yes.
Did you say that should be deficit?
It'll be a negative number. Yeah.
It's a big little sign that needs to be there.
Definitely.
Okay, you have the report in front of you. What is your pleasure with this report?
I move we accept the report as written.
We have a motion on the floor to accept this report as given.
A second.
We have a second on the floor. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to accept this report of the finance officer. Any other questions? If not, those in favor, please manifest by raising your right hand. Passed unanimously. Okay, emergency team update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You should have in front of you the spreadsheet that I normally present. I'll just go on down to Swain County. Total tests from March till now is 5,121. There are 44 pending tests, 4,891 negative tests. We've had 186 positives. Right now we have 34 active cases, 3 deceased. The overall positive rate since March is till now is 3.6%. Case fatality is 1.6. If you look at the numbers, of course, 34, we've not had that many all at one time as an active case. So with that, of the 34 active cases, 4 of those will end isolation tomorrow. 28 of the cases are found in zip code 28719. 6 are in zip code 28713. 25 of those can be linked to a previous positive, meaning they were in contact with somebody who was a positive. This could have been a family member, church, work, anything like that. 9 of those are still under investigation. We're still trying to track down possibly if there is a link between another positive now or previous. Of the 186 that are positive, 101 of those are male, 85 are female. If you look at the bottom of that page, the zip code, from Monday until now, and I didn't list this, but from Monday until today, there were 2 additional in 28713 zip code. There have been 20 since Monday at 28719 zip code. If you flip over to the back, it breaks it down per age. 0 to 17, there are 21. 18 to 24, 22 people. From ages 25 to 49, there have been 77. From 50 to 64, there's been 42. 65 to 74, there have been 17. 75 and older, there have been 7. Below that, you have the information from the other local counties. Macon County, as of the date of 10/7, they had 32 active positive. Graham, as of today, had 63. They were reporting 5 deceased. This evening, they have announced they have 2 more. So Graham County has 7 deceased currently. Clay County, as of 10/7, they had 12 active cases. Cherokee County had 66. Jackson County had 56. So if you look at those across Western North Carolina and North Carolina, active cases are going up. About 36% of our population has been tested. Now, some of that may have been a few repeats, a person getting tested multiple times, but about 36% of our population has been tested. And with the population of around 14,000, that's a positivity rate of 1.3%. So it's still relatively low for Swain County, for all of our 14,000 population. Do you have any questions on that handout? The other 2 handouts are just visuals. It only takes one as the first one, and it just shows, number 1 is somebody that contracted COVID at work. They take it home to their teenager. Teenager gives it to the friend goes into somebody's home, does some work, then they infect somebody, and then they infect somebody. So that number 1 person who was the original case doesn't even know the people that's number 4, 5, or 6. So that's just how widespread it can get very quickly. The second handout is how COVID-19 in the workplace becomes a cluster. This, in fact, did happen in Haywood County. This is a hair salon where an individual was positive, the hairstylist. They were not social distancing. They were not operating at 50% capacity, to my knowledge. They may or may not have been wearing a mask. But that one person at the current time has infected 18 people, or they've infected people and then it has spread. So there's a total of 18. And unfortunately, 2 of those people have passed away. That's why it's very important that we still remember wait, wear, and wash. Everybody's kind of getting a little complacent about the masks and social distancing. And it's very important that you still remember to remain 6 feet apart, wear your mask, and wash your hands. Because it just takes one person in a workplace, one person in a church, one person singing in church, any of that, and it can spread quickly. Do you have any questions about COVID-19 or the data that I presented?
Or would you simply say that until you actually see it, it can just stay out of your mind?
Yes, sir.
You don't know what's going on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the testing guidelines pretty much the same as we've been having. In other words, if you feel bad, go be tested.
Yes.
That's kind of still the standard?
Still the standard. If you're not feeling well, have some of the symptoms, of course, quarantine, call your doctor, go be tested. If you are a contact to a positive, we ask that you wait 5 days before you go get tested unless you're having symptoms. Of course, anybody can be tested. Whether you're a contact or feeling ill, you can still be tested. Urgent care currently is doing about 90 tests a day. Quite a few.
What is the return time on the test now? Are they?
The rapid test is same day. And then the others are 3 days. Just depending. With this volume that we're seeing in the Western North Carolina, if you don't have a rapid test, that 3 days could become 5 days, of course, because they're testing more people across our region. The other two things I wanted to bring to your attention, the Medicist will be next Saturday at West Elementary. We have it on our Facebook, and we're going to send out flyers to the school, of course. You can pre-register for the event this year because it is drive-through only. Pre-registration just means basically we'll fill your bag for you before you even get there. You should be able to get most of everything that you've asked for. If you come the day of the event, we'll fill out the paperwork for you, and you will get a pre-filled bag. You do not get to choose what medicine that you receive, but it will be pre-filled. So that's at West Elementary next Saturday. The following Wednesday, we are partnering with Smoky Mountain Pediatrics, which is Jill at Urgent Care, and we are going to have a drive-through flu clinic at the middle school from 3 to 6. It's no cost to any person. We ask for children, if they're on Medicaid or have insurance, to bring that information for urgent care to be able to file, but there will be no cost afterwards. There'll be no cost to any adult as well. We are going to waive those fees for each individual. Right now, we have about 90 doses at the health department. We should be getting about 70 more probably in the next week, too, hopefully, for sure. The state is, by the end of the month, going to open up vaccines, and we'll be able to order more at that time.
I'm sorry. Question on the flu shot, is that a live virus? Do you know, on the type of flu shots that are given now?
The quadrivalent flu vaccine is inactivated, so no. And the flu mist that some of the parents elect to have for their children is live. The flu mist is.
As I was reading today, some doctor in Maryland, and studies been done that the live virus can be helpful in deterring COVID. It was on, how all these things come
Yes.
up on, yeah. And I have easy to read some of those, but that one looked pretty legit, but I was just curious. I didn't know whether the regular flu shot was a live virus.
No, the flu mist is.
Okay.
I got a question. You might not be able to answer, but
Go
I'll
ahead.
ask somebody. So the state giving guidelines on masks, social distancing, wash your hands, which is all great guidelines. Those are all defensive factors, which is good. But are they giving any guidelines on offensive factors, such as building your immune system? Does that have any, they've not come up with anything on that, have they?
No, I mean, they say, of course, like any doctor would say, vitamin C, vitamin D, drink
Yeah.
lots of water. That's basically all that I've been told.
Because I know people that's been in contact with COVID people that never caught it. And I would think that probably their immune system was maybe good enough to fight it off, or I don't know how that works, but it just seems strange to me that nothing's coming down the pipeline and saying, here's how to stay healthy, and not, if you do get around somebody, maybe you won't catch it.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, I mean, we're 8 months into it. I mean, every bit of 8 months. So it's interesting that, like Danny said, there's lots of studies coming out, and then there'll be more studies conflicting those studies or
Yeah.
agreeing with those studies. I mean, we're not, let's be honest, we're probably not going to really know for at least a year
Probably not.
or longer, truly. They're saying something different every day. That's why when we always give a presentation, we'd be like, This is the guidelines for today.
Exactly, yeah.
This
I
is
just
what I
wondered-
know at this moment.
I just wonder if they had been any kind of guidelines on that avenue.
No.
Any other questions? No questions, we will accept this report. We have a motion and a second.
Make a motion to accept this report.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second on the floor, so we have a motion and a second to accept this report as given. Any other questions, any other concerns? If not, then all in favor of accepting this report as is given, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we move on to budget. That's what we're moving on to, that
Yeah, let's go there.
budget amendment number 2.
So in budget amendment number 2, we talked about the PPE for the fire department's $24,000. The school HVAC system, this was one thing we mentioned several weeks ago about the middle school and the necessity to refurbish that unit up there, $200,000. Sheriff's office van, this was of course the one that was wrecked down in Charlotte, and we're replacing it with insurance funds. And the Board of Elections COVID funding from the state NC Pro office. And so if you look at the revenue sources, $50,000 for insurance claim, transfer from school capital reserve, $200,000, and then the COVID, additional COVID funding coming in for a total budget amendment of $294,000. And then the health department also had a increase in COVID expenditures and COVID revenue. So that's what you're seeing there at an estimated $200,000 for a total budget amendment in the human services fund of $200,000.
I'll just ask you one question. No, it has to do with this, but it doesn't have to do with this.
Okay.
I was just wondering about the sheriff's office vehicle that was rear-ended. Has that been taken care of? Is that?
The appraiser went down, I think, last Friday, so it's in the process. It was still down in, I think it was in Gaston County, and so the air adjuster went down and is kind of in the intermediary between us and the insurance company of the trucking person that hit us. So, but yeah, they
It's
are in
being
contact.
covered,
Yes, it's
yeah.
being covered, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Kevin, on the school stuff, I know Superintendent Purcell came in at her last meeting and talked to us about it some. And I understood we have to replace the units in the rooms too. Is this gonna cover that?
This will cover all of it.
This is covering it all.
Yeah, now, if they do a different, if they figure out how to change the guts of the machinery out, then it'll be a little bit cheaper. But this is kind of like if we have to replace it all. And so we're still in that part of it, but I did want to go ahead and give them money because they are having some expenses right now with rental units and pretty much everything else up there at this point. So didn't want to go ahead and get it on a budget amendment to do
This
that.
will cover-
And we won't spend, I mean, we won't give them money until they give us the bills for it. So it's not something that's like an allocation. It's got to be, we'll have to have the bills from the HVAC supplier.
But this will cover the HVAC system at the middle school, the whole thing.
Correct.
Because it's quite a bit cheaper than what it was at the elementary schools, isn't it?
Yeah, on those particular units, they were, what, now this is only for, I want to call it the, I guess the 1950s or 60s building. So, it's just that section, not the newer section.
Oh,
So with, at the middle school, at the elementary school, we replaced the whole system in the whole school. So it was about, I think it was $280,000 for the whole building out there, at each facility. And this is around 200.
So we're not replacing much anything that we replaced before. Because I knew whenever we talked about doing this too, we wanted to make sure that at the other schools, if they had any changes, that the units in the rooms would work, because we just replaced all them, didn't we, at the other schools?
Yeah, at East and West, we replaced the whole units. You know, we were having problems with humidity control, so it added the units plus the humidity control section to it. And so, yeah, both of them's all brand new.
But this will cover everything we need to. We don't have to change none of the new stuff at the, all right.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, you have the budget amendment number 2 in front of you, explaining what it's for as well as from where the funds are coming. I will entertain a motion in a second, if that is your desire.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget amendment number 2.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the budget amendment number 2. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to accept the Swain County budget amendment number 2. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimously. Okay, we have public comments. We have Gunner.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Vasquez. I live on 301 Kirklands Creek Drive, or Road, rather. I want to thank the commissioners and all of the support personnel that go into putting what you guys do for us, for your time, effort, and energy. I also want to thank the sheriffs and all the local law enforcement, EMTs, for the job they do every single day, and fire guys. On 5 October, this past Monday, at 18:30, we held our first Kirklands Creek Community Watch gathering. We want to try to reinstitute that, and that's one of my prime reasons for being here, is just to point it out to you that the neighborhood or community watch thing hasn't been going for 20 years, or for years anyway. I'm not sure how long. We had about 50 people attend at first meeting. I just put 2 signs out and said we're going to meet in the church parking lot. 50 people showed up. And Sheriff Cochran, I talked to him ahead of time, and he strongly supports the idea of having eyes and ears out there to help his police force. And we also had one of the lieutenants, Lieutenant Bryant, attended the first meeting, and he got up and said a few words too. So it was good. It was well supported on the sheriff's side. It's not a vigilante thing. It's just being a good American thing. That's the reason I'm doing it. Anyways, the day after the election it's uncertain how people are going to react on either side. And I'm just stating the fact there. There's little time to react to be ready for any civil arrest at that point. If we know on 3 November everything's going to be upside down, we only have a few short weeks before that day comes. And that's the reason I'm bringing this up again. There's little time to react and to be ready for civil unrest at that point. I ask you commissioners, please, to consider additional funding, and I don't know anything about the funding, and I see all the figures. You guys are doing a great job. I'm not pinging on anybody. I just want you to consider, if things get turned upside down, and we're going to have to rely on the manpower with the equipment they have as far as the police go, to support our whole community. So Sheriff Cochran is probably the guy to talk to about it. I'm a proponent of that, just being ready in advance. So I would ask you to consider additional funding to ensure that our local law enforcement personnel are as prepared as possible for any contingency or potential threat. And again, I thank you guys for your time and don't have anything specific about, other than what I just said. I just wanted you guys to hear it so you can react to it or not. Stay motivated. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
I just wanted to say that the community watch.
Got it? We got a question here.
I just going to commend you on the community watch. I think that's something that's imperative in every community within this county and counties around us, because we're all in this together. And I think it's a great, I appreciate you starting that, getting it kicked back off, because maybe it'll set a fire under some other communities. And about this preparedness that he's talking about, I'm always about preparedness, and you got to be at least have a good plan. And I think that's, it's really, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I think it's an easy, there's 5 easy steps to get it going. You know, if people are interested, there's 5 easy steps that you can get on the internet, talk to the sheriff about it. He gave me the stuff and I'm doing the research now for it. You assign block captains and have signs and stuff posted. And it's just going to be a good thing.
Sure.
And I'm hoping we take it beyond just the security side of it and reopen the community center on Kirkland's Creek again, you know what I mean? And to get back to the way that was operating up there before I even came to Bryson City. But I appreciate you saying thank you, but I'm just being a good American, and I know that you guys are too. But it's a good idea. If we can get the word out, we get every community. Like, I can't handle Shepherd's Creek, I can handle Kirkland's Creek. But Shepherd's Creek probably needs to do something like this, or other parts of the town. I think it's a really good thing. If you can talk to people and encourage it, it's not that big a deal. It gives people a purpose in life too, from some of the older folks that just didn't get on the hook and talk to somebody, and it's just a good thing. We can start tightening up our communities and live like Americans again, instead of being individuals and watching TV. You can get out and help me bushwhack.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Good, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes from September 10th, regular session, and September the 24th, a work session. You have had those and you have gone over them. Do you have any corrections or omissions or deletions that you would like to see? If not, I would like to take them both at the same time if there's no problems with either of them. So we will adopt the minutes from September 10 and 24. Any questions or concern about the minutes? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as presented for both dates.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes as given to us for September the 10th and September the 20th. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt the minutes as you have in front of you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passed unanimously. Moving on down, we have county manager's report.
The first thing I wanted to bring up is the draft agenda. There was one thing about flood variance, and so I did want to let you know that we have talked to the landowner. She was going to have to provide some other statistics for y'all to look at, some flood elevations and things like that. And so I also talked to her about a process called a LOMAR, which is a letter of map revision. And it's kind of one step further, and so she is going to be trying to get that, and basically it essentially takes it out of the floodplain through a study process. So she was rather excited about that, not having to go through this extra step of variance. And also, you know, hopefully it'll save her money and anything, but we are working with that. One of the things I want to mention about that, and that kind of segues into the next topic, is the different ordinances that we talked about at the end of the month. I thought we could work on the floodplain ordinance, looking at it specifically, what we can take out, what we can't take out. I would, anybody that's are the enforcement folks with this, I'd like to have them in here to be talking about this with you. So then the other part is the solid waste ordinance. We can look at it as well. And didn't know if you wanted to just have an extended work session to make all that work out for that evening. This may take more than one meeting to go through, but if I can have some staff here to talk to you about both of them, that would be good. And then we can also answer questions about all the lingo of this flood one, like the flood certificate. What does that actually mean? And that sort of thing. So, any questions about that? I know it was on the agenda, and just wanted to make sure y'all are aware that we're working with the landowner. Hopefully, it's all going to be taken care of. So,
Yes, Mr. King, I'd really like for people to understand what that one, will
Yeah.
you say that again?
it's called a LOMAR, which is a letter of map revision. So in 2010, I believe it was, FEMA did a flood mapping project in Swain County. The majority of the flood mapping was computer generated. And so some of the areas have not been studied, because I think we only picked up 2 areas, I think, in the county that were actually studied. And I know Alarka Creek, I think, was one of them.
Deep Creek is a studied area.
Deep Creek is a
Yeah,
study
it
area.
is. It
Okay. But anyway, it may not have got to her, but what her neighbor did, on Florida Avenue, they employed, I think Heron Associates, to do a LOMAR, and it was approved. And once that happened, it was taken out of the floodplain, basically. There's other criteria in there, but I don't think that they can get flood insurance. They're kind of waiving their rights for that, from my understanding. So if something were to happen, if there were a catastrophic flood, you kind of have to waive your rights for that. But other than that, it does meet the criteria that we would need, and they could get a building permit. So
When you say it waives the rights for flood insurance, is it for FEMA flood insurance or private company flood insurance?
okay,
Because
so
I've talked to several private companies who said that you could pretty much still get flood insurance. I've talked to other people in other counties who have got this revision, and they told me they could get help with their flood insurance.
yeah, so a lot of insurance companies have flood insurance. And you got to think about sharing the risk. Okay, so I'm an insurance company. I'm going to take the first pocket of risk. But you know who's at the end of that risk? The National Flood Insurance Program. At every one of those, even if they're private, at the end of that list is that funder, which is FEMA. Okay, so that's, yeah, they can sell it to you, but they couldn't offer it if you didn't have this map, the FEMA maps, nor the plan. If you hadn't adopted the maps, basically, because this board had to adopt the maps back in 2010. If you hadn't have adopted the maps, and if you hadn't did the ordinance, you couldn't have the National Flood Insurance Program, which is the end risk taker on every insurance you get, whether it's private or public. So, does that answer your question?
Not really, 'cause
They're the underwriter.
so they can't get
If you
insurance at all.
If you do a
If we don't
LOMAR,
have
if you do a LOMAR, from my understanding, you're waiving your right for insurance. You're saying, I'm taking the risk. Now, in that area, you know, I've got my personal opinion. I don't know if it ever flooded or not. It's never flooded before, but it's one of those, I'm kind of taking the risk. Now, it's not for people that probably have to finance their homes or anything like that. It's probably for people that already have owned their homes and have the money to do the project. So this is not for everybody. But it may be help some people, you know, with it.
Can I answer some of that, just because letter of might revision is essentially what they've done is in 2010, they come in. Deep Creek was actually studied before 2010. It was when we first adopted the floodplain ordinance. I don't even know when that was, but
1980?
yeah, somewhere around there. Deep Creek was already studied. There's a studied stream. When they study these streams, they fly. They fly. It's called LiDAR, and they shoot an image and it bounces back, and that gives them like a survey from an airplane. Well, essentially what the Webb's done, the ones on Deep Creek, we went in and they challenged what FEMA had said. So they hired an engineer, surveyor comes in, plots out the land, looks at it, and essentially takes them completely out of the floodplain. So that tells me that the floodplain where they are either is right at ground level or just a little bit under ground level. So when the surveyor can put boots on the ground, the surveyor's got better information, in my opinion, than what FEMA does flying an airplane, all right? So that's what they did. I'll let you see on my phone. I went and actually took a picture of their survey because I wanted to see it too. On another house that they did not get out. It was still halfway in. They own 2 properties on that same creek. But it takes them completely out. And when FEMA was here in 2010, I asked them that question. That was one of the big arguments I had with them, is if I put boots on the ground, is that not better than your LiDAR? They couldn't really answer my question. But still, anything that you get, you have to challenge them, and that's what they did with the Lomar. They sent that in to FEMA. FEMA gave them a Lomar and said, hey, look, you're out, we're going to change the map in that section. And what they did is essentially change the map in that section to where they're completely out of the floodplain. Now, the house beside that, I looked at it. I went up and looked at it also. It's pretty much the same elevation as the house is there. So in my mind, it's probably the same way. But you have to go through this process of getting a Lomar to get taken out of it.
But that's, my whole question is about if they could still get insurance or not. And I still don't, and I went and talked to some insurance companies, and they explained to me some of it, but they still thought they could still sell insurance. I talked to another man who told me he got his taken out and did get insurance.
You could
Flood
get
insurance.
insurance on,
It's just
On
higher.
non-flood, and I don't know the answer to that, but why would you if you were out of the floodplain? I mean, if you've been established.
If he
Well-
thinks it's not flooded, he not still, I mean, I understand that, but I have more questions too, because we said Larka wasn't studied, we said Deep Creek was studied. How can we force these people to provide us studies to build a house and stuff if it wasn't even studied by the government to begin with, and the government's the ones who put this on?
it was studied, but it was kind of limited detail study. That means they went in there and done like an estimated guess on things. So,
It wasn't really scientifically studied then.
no, it was more of an educated guess and a little bit over what it should have been to make sure that they didn't mess it up. So, and what you're talking about on insurance, you can get insurance. You can get flood insurance. You get flood insurance on a house that's on top of a mountain. Doesn't matter. But if you pull this program, FEMA will not back flood insurance. They are the underwriters of all these insurance companies out there are all tied to FEMA. That's the reason you have a floodplain ordinance. Because FEMA said, we're not going to insure people that's building in these places, and then they flood, and we got to pay this. And so they developed this national floodplain, well, it's North Carolina Floodplain Mapping Association. And what they do is you can get insurance, and you can get insurance if you pull it. But the thing about it is you're going to go through with somebody like Lloyd's of London where it's going to cost you $30,000 a year in flood insurance. Where they're going to take the gamble, but they're going to take the money. So,
But if you build in a floodplain, you're pretty much taking the gamble yourself.
but they're tied.
See,
They're tied to banks, and banks will not let you have a loan unless you have insurance.
And that's part of my issue too, is how it all came about. Because I remember when we done this.
Yeah.
I remember coming to the meetings. I mean, I wasn't on the commissioner board or nothing, but I came to the meetings. Another issue we had was, why is hurricane-affected areas cheaper than the mountains? And the flood that we had was less, we didn't have as many floods as they did hurricanes, and they were arguing that some of the wealthiest people who lived on the coast were getting their houses rebuilt. And this was a lot to help them out more than somebody who's trying to build because they own on the creek. We're putting a burden on people having to get these studies done.
Oh, it's expensive, yeah.
It's expensive. And even to get out of it, if they've been put in it, they still have to pay to get a study done to get out of something that the government put on them. So that's some of my issues with some of these ordinances. We have good intentions when we do some of this stuff, but we place burdens on people who don't necessarily deserve it. And I know there's lots of, I'd like to do more talking about adjusting and looking at this. And I read over the ordinance a few times, and there's certain things that I didn't like at all. And I do agree. So I'd like for us to see what we could tweak on it and stuff.
Well, I'll definitely have Bill here the next time. Who else?
Would you want to call Terry Fox? He's the floodplain administrator. He's the one that handles our region. He would come and talk. And
Yeah, that'd be good. And it might be good to have him this next meeting too. That way he can kind of tell us the rationale why. I mean, get it straight
yeah, if
from.
we could get a hold of him
from the
pretty
source.
soon, we could maybe schedule him for that.
Okay.
Because it would be interesting, because I thought, in fact, I thought that you said that one part of her house was in the floodway, and then according to our ordinance, there ain't nothing she can do if she's in the floodway at all, is there?
She could get a notarized through a surveyor saying what she's doing is not affecting the floodway.
So she still just has to do a study.
And that's,
But floodways are more strict than
yes, sir,
the
in the floodplain.
floodplains, especially when it comes to field dirt and
Yeah.
new construction things, which, and I know me and Kevin had talked earlier, because some of to me, what she's asking is not a real, I mean, I guess it's a big construction thing, but to me, it's not a big construction thing. It's adding just a little bit, but I don't know, the ordinance is real specific. To do this, you have to do this, or.
But we could also get on North Carolina floodplain mapping page, and they have like a 101 floodplain kind of a pamphlet that they have. I think Bill's got one in his office, but you can download it and print it, and it kind of gives you basics of floodplain, and it goes over every scenario as far as additions, mobile homes, all that's kind of in there, and it's kind of just it's pretty like just the basics of what a floodplain, what happens in a floodplain. That might be good for everybody to get, where you can flip to it and kind of get more.
I'll try to send out a copy of that. We'll try to find a copy and send it to you.
Now, that ordinance you sent had all that pretty much in
It's just like a
about
little, it's a little,
homes.
it's a little book though. It makes it simpler. It's more in simple terms of do this. It's got pictures with it, you know, for us that don't get it in the red text. It helped me out when I started. I mean, that was one of the things.
So we'll try to get Mr. Fox here. We'll definitely have Bill here where we can just kind of work through some of the things in the ordinance y'all want to see changed or possibly changed, and then we'll go from there. That's all right.
I'd definitely like for anybody who has issues to check out the letter of map revision and see if it's just them signing a way that they can't get insurance or not. I mean, it'd be worth it to some people to check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess, let me go back to one comment. They can probably get insurance, but why would they have to if they're out of the floodplain? Because they've established by a licensed engineer that they don't have to have insurance because they're not going to flood. Isn't that what that means?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It takes them completely out, just like there's no floodplain there. So if they wanted to get insurance, they could, but there's really no reason to it. And the bank's not gonna once they got that low mower, they can take that copy to the bank and say, hey, listen, we don't have to have flood insurance anymore. Now, the bank may override that and say, oh, well, you're close to it, but that's the bank's, position. But most of them's gonna take that low mower and say, yeah, you're right, you don't have to have that flood insurance. So that's what the document's for.
So it would save her on that part as well. So I mean, I'll look at the cost savings for the person, for the citizen. If she doesn't, if she does go and get this low mower and it's successful, well, then she may not even have to have flood insurance, which she's probably got now.
Exactly.
Which is gonna save her every year from here on out. So there's different ways to look at that, I guess. But anyway, I'll try to get Mr. Fox here and we'll go through everything and try to get that pamphlet to you. The other one is the solid waste ordinance. Y'all have had copies of that for the last couple of months now. Any revisions you want to make to it, or I don't know if anybody we need to have in here to talk about that necessarily, because most of that deals with just funding. So I guess we can just have a discussion about it at that point. Something, I'm not sure if it was in the paper this week or not. We did a bidding process for the pool, but we did not get the construction documents in time to make the deadlines. And so we're not technically rebidding. We've never really given out the construction documents yet, so we've not actually accepted any bids for the project yet. So that should be here. It was supposed to be here yesterday. I think it's going to be done by Friday. Then it'll be going to the environmental folks to let them make sure it's okay, and then we can send that out to the 3 bidders we've got. I think we're going to have 3 bidders on the project. So just want to let you know in case you heard, yeah, the county's rebidding. Not necessarily. We never did get the first bid on anybody. So
Hard to rebid when you don't bid.
exactly. We are working on, our crews are working on some storage facilities. I've mentioned this before. We're doing one out near the business center, and then we're doing one at the EMS base. All of that was from COVID funding from last quarter. The school project is wrapping up. I think they've moved in some of the administrative wing on a limited basis without any kids going into the facility, but looking good. We have some cosmetic issues that we're working through, a pretty long punch list with the builder. One of the things was, this is what I wanted to touch base with you on, is the DOT planning, which you've seen a copy of that from Mr. Sale last meeting. We did go ahead and let the contractor move forward with that, because we're kind of facing a pretty tight timeline with asphalt and moving forward. So anyway, the additional cost is around $120,000, and that is coming from their contingency line item within the budget. So the money is there in the grant proceeds and in the loan proceeds that we have to make that work out. That particular plan he showed you. So we did work out all that. Do have one more meeting that we're going to have. We had a Zoom meeting the other day. We're going to have probably another one Monday. I needed a little bit more clarification on some of the numbers they were coming back with, but I think it'll all work out. So we went ahead and told them, get the asphalt to moving. So. Legislative goals. So I was contacted, I think Roger and Ben both were contacted maybe by Connie Orr over in Graham County. She's the district representative for the Association of County Commissioners, and she was just wanting to touch base with us on legislative goals. And legislative goals from their perspective is some issue that's affecting all 100 counties that we can all get behind and do something about. And so it's not individual county legislative goals. So we really have 2 different paths we're working on. We've got all 100 county ones, which of course are going to be broadband, mental health, unfunded mandates, pretty much all the big ones that's already kind of in the mix. Then we've got our local ones, which was the interest money for the county. looking at possibly a TDA restructure on funding. So right now, I guess I need direction on the legislative goals process for all 100 counties. Is there something that is needed that we can put in for that would at least make them think about putting it on their legislative goals for the year? And basically the way this works, they collect all these goals, then they send those goals to the subcommittees. The subcommittees come out and say they give their top 3, then it goes to one main one, usually in January, and then the board of directors picks, I think, top 10 out of all those goals. And I think for the last 2 years, it's been broadband, and it probably will be broadband again, the #1 goal. So the other one is, of course, county revenue sources, letting the state come up with different revenue sources for county governments. Of course, school funding is always a big topic. Anyway, just be thinking that I've got to put it in by next Thursday. It's an online service, so we just have to kind of stick it in. And, if you have a particular legislative goal that you would like to do.
As of right now, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
As of right now, you basically have 4 that you could feed in that would entail all counties.
Mm-hmm.
And you said those 4 just a moment ago, those 4. And my question to the commissioners is there anything that's on your mind that's concerning to you that we don't seem to be addressing or not addressing fast enough or hard enough that we could give to them to let them help in getting that done? And I guess partly the reason I'm saying that is I don't know of any other besides those 4.
One thing I just thought of when you were talking,
Okay.
push for a different methodology on distributing DOT funding for roads.
Oh, with state budget, I mean, that's the whole thing, the
So-
problem with that.
So that could be a legislative goal,
But I
especially for
think
rural
that-
counties.
But I think that would, I mean, we would be very interested in that. I don't know that some of the other counties in the mid-state would be. But I think that very definitely, and I can just hear them saying already, you can't use this year as a model for your budget. So that would kind of annoy me if they said that, but, I mean, they can say that. But I was just asking, by saying the 4 that you mentioned, if there was anything else that they were thinking about, and I would want to hear it as well, because I can't come up with anything outside the region that some of the places are doing that benefit us.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
even the things we said affects all counties, I don't see how, broadband, I bet you it don't affect all counties like it does the
Yeah.
western region.
Right.
So I really don't see how we could all get together and say this is the main things we want to fight for with the rest of the counties if we're totally different in our region.
Right, and one of the reasons I don't want to go down this road is it's an exercise in futility. I don't know who's on the committees, should be, but I don't know who's on the committees, but it's too easy to wink at a suggestion and just let it go without really debating it or talking about it or finding out about it. And that, I don't care for that kind of government.
Unfunded mandates really affects
Right.
us a lot. Also, the health department, I believe, we're affected quite a bit, aren't we? With unfunded mandates and what we have to do, well, with all, I'd say probably in all of our departments.
Yeah.
And I think some of the larger counties would be affected with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that unfunded mandates is definitely one that we would need to be lifting up.
I mean, I'd like to lift up the others too, but I don't see the other counties fighting as hard for broadband as we need to fight for it, if that's what we want. And I would like to know how many years all these things have been on this list of legislative, what we really want done real fast of motive or whatever it.
I know broadband's been the last few years. Before that, it was opioid addiction funding, and I think that went for like 3 years.
Right, but we, I don't know how the rest of the state has done, but we as Swain County have really suffered with lack of mental health funding
Yeah.
and mental health facilities. I mean, you know, and to me, mental health ought to be all 100 counties, whether it is or whether it isn't, it should be. So,
The other thing which, and it can be a legislative goal, it's a political issue, is whether you would support Medicaid expansion. Because I know, and it's divided, all counties divided on this topic. In one respect, every other state's getting it. Why can't we get it? And that would help your mental health services. But I just don't know if you want to suggest that as a legislative priority to see, lobby for Medicaid expansion.
I see that as a way to be cut off at the knees, especially whoever is in power in the legislature. So I think taking on the mental health issue without so much the Medicaid to pay for it may be one way to go, but you can always offer that as a, if they say, well, how are we going to pay for it? You've got federal money sitting out there yet. So, but that's a good point, and it is a political divide there.
Right.
So,
When you're talking about the goals, I talked to Leonard on the broadband committee. His thinking that, just for us in general, not, again, it's hard to include the rest of the state, but for them to continue to push that House bill, what was it, 129? That's kind of gaining ground at times, and then it gets put back, but he feels like that's to continue pushing for that, to give the counties a little more authority in broadband. And also to continue the push to fund the state granting program to where local providers can continue to get grants rather than just licensed providers, because that's made a heck of a difference here. He's afraid that those grant programs are going to run out. They're going to stop funding them as such.
But they've already opened it up to tier 2 counties,
Yeah.
which is going to take more, and then I think tier 3 is scheduled for either next year or year after.
They're putting more, it's opened it up. If they put more money in it, though, it'd still be of a benefit.
Definitely. If y'all have any more thoughts about it, just email me, and I can send it around.
and I want to restate, it's already been stated, but I want to restate it, giving the DOT the funding that it needs to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, I guess I was more thinking about the formula
Right.
on how they distribute and who they give the money to needs to be more adaptive to rural communities that may not have the population, because that's pretty much what they go by. The list, and it's almost like a popularity contest.
Yes,
Who's
it
going to
is,
get what?
And that's the whole thing, you can't argue against it, because, if you have 15,000 people and another county has 300 and some thousand people, or a million, how are you gonna compete against that?
It's going to go on usage of roads and statistics, and I understand that, but
Yeah.
How long do we have to go?
Do you know, or who do we know that understands the formula enough to explain it to us so we could put forth some recommended legislative changes?
Well, I think me and you and Roger have sat down on 3 meetings, I believe.
Right.
And I'm not an expert, I mean, nowhere near an expert on the formula.
Right.
And it was explained to me 3 different times. You know, and I don't know if y'all felt like that or not, but it's very difficult to
Well, it's
understand where they're
difficult
coming from.
It's difficult to understand because the bases keep moving every time you talk to somebody different.
Right.
And so that's why I'm wondering, do we know, do we have, I don't know how entrenched your dad was, but do we know, do we have someone who can come in and explain to us what is going on so we have an understanding? It started for me, the difference between the word repair and maintain. 2 words. That I think in all of our meetings, I got different answers for those words. So we need someone who knows their jargon or knows something anyway. Be careful when you hear this word because this is a code word for this. I mean, we've got to know that. So, anyway, now I'm getting upset about it.
I've got a question on that, just ain't nothing to do with that, but kind of does, because you brought up DOT. There's a big old hole going out 19 there, right before you get to the bridge there, across the Nantahala River. I know they don't have any money to build a road or pave a road, but my God, surely they got enough money to fix a hole in the road.
Got major issues. with
That's
it.
a major issue right there.
It is.
I
It's a
mean,
deep pipe underground there, too,
Yeah.
I believe,
Where's it at?
going towards,
if you pass
On
the
the
intersection of Nantahala
Yeah,
and you're going out there to the bridge there, at Almond Bridge,
yeah.
it's right there, and
Where they
that,
got it coned off.
they got it coned off, you
They've
gotta
had
cone
it
around.
Tom's around it for
It's been
a year.
like that for, I don't know how long.
But let me tell you,
About a
yes,
year or
it
longer.
has been.
So
Second-
DOT people, if you're listening,
Well, and let me tell you something else if they're listening. That's been used as an excuse for as long as I've been here.
yeah,
So, but yes, I agree.
it's dangerous, and especially
It is
at night, you
dangerous.
can't see going through there. And you miss them cones, you're in a big old hole. I mean, a hole that's like that. And I
Is
don't know how
it
deep
a
it is.
culvert failing?
It's the culvert has,
Oh, okay.
the land is given away around the culvert and
Yeah.
washed out.
it goes into Finger Lake,
Oh, okay.
I believe, don't that go into Finger
Yeah,
Lake?
I don't know where,
Not-
I don't know if it goes straight across, it must go straight across somewhere.
I don't know where it's going to go.
But it's a,
Well, that's part of the infrastructure
It
that's
just- it
supposed
has
to
go
be,
Finger Lake.
you know, it's supposed to be failing.
yeah,
You know, a lot of culverts were put in about 50 years ago.
Exactly,
And apparently
yeah.
they're all getting ready to fail at the same
Yeah.
time. So,
Well, and the culvert, speaking of, that's the road issue, and probably some of the other counties as well, but that's the whole big issue is the culverts are being crushed or are crushed.
yeah.
And putting water around the culvert so that it all just washes out. Anyway, yes, we need more money in DOT.
Mr. Chairman, we're also members of the rural county.
Right.
And so that's, as we were stating, when the little guys, so to speak, can all get together, that would be a way to fund too. If you go to a larger county, I was a neighboring county just the other day, a larger neighboring county, and I had not been on a couple of roads in a while, and I noticed how much, well, roundabouts, I guess you'd call them, and just a lot of construction, a lot of improvement. Now, that goes to what you were talking about, Mr. Chairman, about improvement and resurfacing a road and improving a road. They think of that as 2 different things. So, but there's a lot of money spent on the roads in larger counties.
There is.
Well, and I do know that around here, whenever they try to, quote, patch a hole, They just dump asphalt in it. They don't prep the edges or anything else. They just dump the asphalt in it, and it all winds up falling in on itself. Yeah. Okay, moving on, moving on.
I mean, that's all I have on my report for tonight.
Well, that's enough, by God. Okay, good. All right. Commissioner Parsons? I do that every time, don't I? One of these days, I'm gonna learn your names, and then it'll be too late.
I have a couple of things, Mr. Chairman, or several. And maybe let you touch on one. I'll want, about visiting your neighbor, I'll just, if you want to touch on that. I attended through Zoom. These 3 meetings I'm talking about are all Zoom meetings, so, or online type of meetings. I had a Southwestern Rural Planning Organization meeting on September 28th, and that was followed by the Southwestern Economic Development meeting. And then had an October 6th, had a Gibbon Spoon meeting. And I just want to throw a number at you that year-to-date, I believe this number, that's not counting tonight, but year-to-date, 14,688 meals have been served by Gibbon Spoon. And that's all my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I don't have a report, but I'd like to talk about what Mr. Gunner said about the community stuff. 'Cause I think I'm glad he is starting in his community, and I hope that we could get more people in other communities to start their watches back and talking to each other and more community things. I think that's a real good thing he's doing.
I was trying to think, as he was talking, and other people mentioned it, when I first ran for commissioner for this job. I think there were 3 active community clubs in Swain County. And now I don't think there are any, none. So I think, and I agree with you, and if we can provide anything but money to help them do that, and I know the sheriff's office does as well. But I think we ought to strongly encourage that kind of work. And see if we can't get the communities trying to help themselves again. So you should do a good job.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have much, just wanted to relay those objectives for broadband for to Kevin. The library postponed their meeting. They're still waiting on the surveys. They didn't, and they're waiting on some donor software that they need to look at. So there was no reason to meet until we get some of that stuff together, so that meeting got postponed. And we will have a broadband meeting next week.
And may I just ask where you have those meetings?
The broadband's still a Zoom meeting.
Oh,
Yeah,
citizen.
no, yeah, they're not in
Okay.
person.
And if someone just wanted to observe, how would they go about doing that? Do you know?
Contact one of the members on the committee,
Okay.
and they can get the number sent, because you gotta have that specific
Right.
invite to be in the number. And that, Julie usually sponsors that on her Zoom. I guess you have to pay for that for somebody to, I don't know how you get a Zoom, but we usually,
Someone has to set up the meeting, and then
Yeah.
you get all kinds of numbers to dial.
yeah, well, you just click on it, and usually you get right on it, but that's usually through Julie. She usually sets that up.
Okay, thank you.
I did visit the school. I walked through the school this week, and it's coming along. That parking lot entrance, like Kevin was saying.
High school.
High school, yeah. Parking lot entrance, like Kevin was saying, I asked them kind of a little bit about that. Are they ready? And they're ready. So they got to take down a lot of ground, get rid of a lot of soil on that top section, but they've got it cleaned up there. I think they're trying to get that job trailer moved out pretty soon, so they should be on their way with that, I think, and getting equipment installed in the cafeteria. class, some of the STEM office is probably one that needs the most work of any of the structures they've done there, but the admin's it looks pretty good, so. Get a chance, maybe we'll go over there and visit the superintendent there, Jason, just let him walk you through there, it's pretty cool. Also went up on Deep Creek and looked at the issue with the floodplain, talked to the neighbors and I've talked to a couple of you guys about that, so. I want to kind of come off what Ken has said about the neighborhood watch thing. I think Gunner's got a really good idea there, and I do think we need to push it, or at least offer the information. Is there any way we could get the information out there on kind of how somebody could start a neighborhood watch? Maybe I'm sure there's a structured way to do it, not just go up and say, hey, we're just gonna go get guns and hang out. I'm sure there's a structured way to do it. Maybe we could put a link maybe on our website, or somebody can go in there and click that and see how to do it.
It might be good to coordinate that with the sheriff's
Sheriff's
office,
Department,
have it
too.
on the sheriff's, and we can link it from our website or something.
There you go, yeah. And maybe the sheriff could be involved in kind of
Yeah.
teaching that. I'm good.
Well, listening to all these reports, I don't feel like I did anything, but I know it would be busy, so, you know. But I went up and I enjoyed Florida Avenue or Florida Street or whatever it is. Yeah, they're a friendly group of people up there, my goodness. So we did that. And I'll write down this stuff next time. I won't remember what all it was. So that'll be my report for the evening, guys. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? New business? Any new business, guys? We have no call to go into closed session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Now, if I send you guys out a text, don't blame me. When I get home, I'll think about what I was going to say.